we start at the beginning. And the way to start at the beginning is you've got to look at what you can do about this stockpile of stress that's first causing the problem. Then it became, do you give somebody something for that? Or do you evaluate it and look at it for what it is? Pull out the different, from the woman themselves. The woman has to tell you what her stress is, right? What the problems are in her life, so that you can sort that out. Then you can get a bigger picture, and then you can say, okay, now we can systematically begin to remove these burdens off of the person. It's like the straw that broke the camel's back, right? We're going to start taking this burden off. And as you remove that burden, what happens is you simultaneously, you're removing the cause of the problem. It's the complete load of stress. As you start taking more and more of it off, what happens? Guess what happens? All these symptoms that were manifested because of it begin to retreat. So you're not treating symptoms. You're creating a circumstance and an environment where you're removing the cause of the problem, and you're creating greater and greater levels of health, and you're basically rising above the symptom.
Preventing.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then what I had to do is come up with a protocol. I took all that collective wisdom from all those people that I was able to interview over the years, from the thousands and thousands of conversations that I had with women, and I realized nobody is dealing with the primary cause of the problem. I did my best to talk to that community out there and say, hey, let's deal with it from this perspective. But there was too much of a competitive nature, and so I decided I'm going to take this on myself. So I developed what I call the Inevitability protocol. Now think about that for a second. When you know what the cause of a problem is, and you know the steps to take, don't you think that you can say, all right, if you do those things, then the outcome is inevitable. You can create an inevitable outcome. If I say to you, look, you have to walk from where we are right now 5 miles down the road. First thing I need to know is, are you willing to do that? And if you say, yes, I'm willing to do that, then what I say is, look, put one foot after the next until you make it to the 5 miles. And if you'll do that,
you'll get there.
It's inevitable, right? So I realize that there are ways to create inevitable outcomes, and you have to set up the circumstances for inevitability up front. Have you ever heard in the human potential movement they say, what would you be willing to do if you knew that you could not fail? Right? You hear that before, right? Well, I'm asking that question, but I'm saying inevitability. If you want inevitability, there are some rules that you have to follow, right? And if you don't follow those rules, then it's a protocol, it's a way to do something, but I'm going to pull the word inevitable out of it, because if you're not willing to follow what you have to do, then it's no longer inevitable, right? So then the inevitability protocol looked at, number one, how is it that we're going to remove the burden of stress? In order to do that, what do you have to do? You have to find out exactly what that stress is. What is the stress that is the cumulative burden on those women? So I developed some terminology. One of the terms is called a dominant burden. Now, a dominant burden, by definition, is anything that overstimulates and spikes the primary hormones of metabolism that initiate and start the process of breakdown. Does that make sense? You're starting right at the beginning. So what do I mean by that? This is something that I talk about extensively. I wrote it in my upcoming book. It's all over our website. I talk about, it's called the Big Hormone Talk. Think about this, Cassie. When a woman is under stress, something physiologically has to occur in order for the breakdown to happen. Because stress for one person is not stress for another. But the over-accumulation of stress on any human being will get to a breaking point. It doesn't matter who it is. And what I'm saying is, if you're suffering from premenopause or menopause symptoms, from stubborn weight gain, from fatigue, from sleep problems, from low sex drive, from mood swings, this is your body telling you, giving you the message that the burden of stress that I'm under, I'm not handling it. So, back again, if you just take that burden, understand how to remove the burden, then you can start the healing process. So the first step, you've got to understand that what the stress does, the only way you feel the stress, or the only way it becomes a problem, is if you do something to your primary hormones that control the life-sustaining aspect of your metabolism. Does that make sense? That's what the big hormone talk is. So women are going to the doctor and getting estrogen and progesterone and getting treated for their low estrogen and progesterone levels, thinking that that's what caused their premenopause and menopause symptoms. Let me ask you a question. What is premenopause and menopause? Premenopause is the gradual decline and fluctuation in a woman's hormonal system leading up to menopause, which is the decline of those hormones to the point where she's no longer capable of having a menstrual cycle. And once you have 12 consecutive months of no menstrual cycle, what you have then, that's what the definition of menopause. So all that whole process is, from premenopause to menopause, is what? The gradual decline of estrogen and progesterone. Cassie, that's what's supposed to happen. Why are we giving hormones when they're supposed to be falling? Did you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now let's go back to what we are talking about. If that stockpile of stress started, let's say even when you were a little girl, and you've been stimulating and spiking those big hormones, which leads to the problem over and over again, and you don't even know how you're doing it. Believe me, most women are completely unaware of how they are doing this. If you've done that your whole life, by the time you reach premenopause or menopause age, you are totally ill-equipped and unprepared when those hormones actually start to fall. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A healthy woman that makes it to premenopause and menopause is going to have no problem, or very little problem, cruising right through that transition, because her entire hormonal system is operational, functional, and balanced. It's when that system is dysfunctional and damaged and they make it to premenopause and menopause, they don't have anything to prop them up, those hormones start to fall, and then now it's on. All kinds of symptoms emerge. But believe me, they were having problems long before these premenopause and menopause symptoms emerged. But when they reached that age, and those other hormones, which were basically sustaining them, propping them up, at least giving them some semblance of quality of life, when those start to fall, now can you see? So if we correct that initial problem, there's a cascade, a domino effect that occurs. And that's what the inevitability protocol is really all about. Here's what it is. There's 4 aspects to it. Number 1,